The order came down at 04:00 hours, a last-minute change. Platoon Bravo was to reroute and cross the Asma Valley. High Command believed it was a faster, more direct path to their objective. The initial plan had been a longer, more arduous route through the mountains. But new intelligence suggested the valley was clear. Drone footage from the day before showed nothing. A few heat signatures dismissed as local wildlife. It was a fatal misinterpretation. The valley wasn't empty, it was a trap. Sergeant Miller looked at his squad. A mix of seasoned veterans and fresh-faced kids, barely out of their teens. He trusted them with his life, and they trusted him. He briefed them on the new route. Intel says it's a cakewalk, but we're not taking chances. Heads on a swivel, eyes open. We move fast. We move quiet. The mood was tense, but professional. No one liked last-minute changes, but orders were orders. They loaded their gear, checked their weapons one last time, and stepped off into the pre-dawn gloom, heading toward the mouth of the Asma Valley. As the sun began to peek over the jagged peaks, casting long, eerie shadows across the valley floor, the platoon began their crossing. The valley was narrow, with steep, rocky walls rising on both sides. It was a natural choke point, a place where any competent commander would feel a prickle of unease. But the drone footage had been clear. They were alone. The only sounds were the crunch of their boots on the gravel and the whisper of the wind funneling through the rock formations. They were about halfway across the point of no return when the world exploded. The first blast was deafening. A massive IED detonated near the front of the column, sending a plume of earth shrapnel and smoke hundreds of feet into the air. The shockwave threw men to the ground. Before the ringing in their ears could subside, a second explosion ripped through the rear of the platoon. They were bracketed, cut off from both the entrance and the exit of the valley. Chaos erupted. Shouts of contact, contact front, and man down filled the air. And then the snipers opened up. From hidden positions high up on the valley walls, precise single shots began to pick them apart. The crack of the rounds echoed off the rocks, making it impossible to pinpoint their locations. Every piece of cover, every boulder and crevice became a potential death trap. Miller screamed into his radio. "This is Bravo 6. We are in a complex ambush in the Asma Valley, taking heavy fire from elevated positions. We need immediate air support and QRF." He was met with a wall of static. The enemy was jamming their communications. They were completely and utterly on their own. In that first devastating minute, the platoon's cohesion shattered. They were no longer a single fighting unit, but scattered groups of terrified soldiers pinned down and fighting for their lives. Miller watched as two of his men, trying to drag a wounded comrade to safety, were cut down by a burst of machine gun fire. Panic began to set in. The training, the discipline, it all threatened to evaporate in the face of such a perfectly executed ambush. They had walked into a meat grinder. Miller knew he had to regain control. Crawling from one position to the next, under a hail of bullets, he started rallying his men. Stay down. Return fire. Mark their positions. He found Corporal Evans, his team leader, trying to get a saw gun back into action. Evans, I need you to lay down suppression on that ridge northwest. Give us some breathing room. Evans, his face a mask of grim determination, nodded and started sending long, controlled bursts toward the enemy muzzle flashes. The platoon had been split into 3 main groups. One group, near the front, was pinned down by the initial IED blast and taking the brunt of the sniper fire. A second group, in the middle, was desperately trying to establish a casualty collection point, or CCP, behind a small rock outcropping. The third group, cut off at the rear, was fighting a furious battle with enemy fighters who were now descending from the cliffs to finish them off. The situation was dire. They were surrounded, outnumbered and outgunned. This is where the heroes emerge, not in a blaze of glory, but in the quiet, desperate moments of survival. The platoon's medic, a young specialist named Doc Peterson, was a whirlwind of motion. He seemed to be everywhere at once. Ignoring the rounds snapping past his head, he low-crawled from one wounded soldier to the next. He applied tourniquets, packed wounds, and administered morphine, whispering words of encouragement. Stay with me. Just hold on. We're gonna get you out of here. At one point, a soldier named PFC Ramirez was hit in the open about 30 meters from any cover. He was screaming, a leg wound pouring blood onto the dusty ground. The sniper fire was intense in that area. It was a suicide run. Without a moment's hesitation, Doc Peterson grabbed his aid bag and 2 smoke grenades. He popped the smoke, creating a temporary screen, and sprinted into the kill zone. He reached Ramirez, applied a tourniquet under fire, and then, with strength born of pure adrenaline, hoisted the wounded man onto his shoulders and carried him back to the relative safety of the CCP. It was an act of bravery that stunned everyone who saw it. Meanwhile, back at the command post, the radio silence from Platoon Bravo was causing alarm. When they missed their second scheduled check-in, the base commander knew something was terribly wrong. He scrambled the Quick Reaction Force, or QRF, and diverted to Apache attack helicopters that were on another mission. The problem was, they didn't know Bravo's exact position. All they knew was they were somewhere in the Asma Valley. The evacuation team, a helicopter crew codenamed Dustoff 7-3, heard the call. They were a medevac unit, their Black Hawk unarmed save for the sidearms of the crew. Standard procedure was to wait for the area to be secured by gunships before attempting a landing. But the desperate pleas for support, now intermittently breaking through the jamming, told them there was no time. Men were dying. The pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Rios, made a choice. He keyed his mic. "Command, this is Dustoff 7-3. We're not waiting. We're going in." It was a monumental risk. Flying an unprotected helicopter into a hot landing zone, into the heart of a well-planned ambush, was against every rule in the book. But the unwritten rule of leaving no one behind trumped them all. As the Apaches roared ahead to try and locate and suppress the enemy, Rios pushed his Black Hawk to its limits, flying low and fast, skimming the valley floor. On the ground, what was left of Platoon Bravo heard the distinct thumping of rotor blades. It was the most beautiful sound they had ever heard. Hope, which had all but vanished, surged through them. Sergeant Miller used a signal mirror, flashing it toward the sound of the approaching chopper, praying they would see it. The Apaches arrived first, a terrifying sight for the enemy. They unleashed a torrent of 30mm cannon fire and rockets onto the ridgelines, suppressing the enemy positions and giving the men on the ground a desperately needed reprieve. Then the Black Hawk appeared, descending into the storm of smoke and chaos. It touched down in a small, exposed clearing, rotors kicking up a blinding cloud of dust. The crew chiefs leaned out, laying down covering fire with their M4 South as the flight medics jumped out and sprinted towards the CCP. "Let's go. Load them up. Priority first." They worked with frantic efficiency, loading the most critically wounded soldiers onto the helicopter. Sergeant Miller directed the defense, ordering his remaining men to provide covering fire for the evacuation. Bullets pinged off the helicopter's fuselage. It was a race against time. The enemy, recovering from the initial shock of the air support, was redoubling their fire. After what felt like an eternity, the most critical casualties were aboard. The flight medics gave Rios the thumbs up. "We're full. Go, go, go." With the wounded secure, Rios pulled collective and the Black Hawk leaped into the air, its side guns blazing. But it wasn't over. The QRF was still fighting their way through the valley entrance to reach the rest of the platoon. The battle for Asma Valley would rage for another 2 hours. When the dust finally settled, Platoon Bravo was battered and broken, but they were alive. They had suffered heavy casualties, but thanks to the heroic actions of men like Doc Peterson and the incredible courage of the Dust-Off crew, they had survived an ambush that should have wiped them out. They walked into that valley as a platoon, and through fire and blood, they left it as brothers, forged in a crucible of combat they would never forget. It was a stark reminder that on the battlefield, plans can fail and technology can be misleading, but what ultimately makes the difference is the bravery and resolve of the soldiers on the ground willing to risk everything for the person next to them. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe for more accounts of courage and sacrifice. We'll see you in the next one.